Well, hello. This is about Rayid Iris. Rayid Iris is a system of maps, templates. There's the constitutional template. There's the birth order template. There's the template of sectors within the iris. There are all kinds of maps. I use maps all the time. I'm looking for the map of this individual person. There are universal maps and there are individual maps. So each time I do an iris interpretation, I'm looking for the universal and the individual map. That map would give me the opportunity to speak more directly to the person's higher self. Most everyone has a tendency to suffer somehow in their body, their nutrition, their physical symptoms, their emotional symptoms. Everybody has a life that in some form or another is painful and at times downright lonely. Everybody has that. Now, for me, the answer has to do with how do you establish the rapport by speaking about the correct templates. Remember, we talked about basically just two types, the jewel and the flower first. Everybody subdivides jewel or flower into different categories, but even those categories are predictable. It's just another template upon a template. And you'll discover that probably 90% of the time, what you do is educate. You'll educate people about their diet. Yes, maybe you want to reduce the sugar or less alcohol, and you want to add greens in, and you want to add juice in or fruit. You're educating about body chemistry, but you're educating about personal responsibility. And then you want to educate at some form or another, did you know that your emotional strata, your emotional way of being, is going to affect your physical health? Most people don't recognize that their mental attitudes, their emotional composition is going to be affecting their physical health, their emotional health, and ultimately their spiritual health. So in this process, what we really do with the iris is educate. That's all you really do, because you want to turn the responsibility back to them to manage their own diet, to manage their own emotional structure and their relationships and their spiritual progress. Yours is the template to educate them about the choices that they might make. Obviously, many of them are universal. Less sugar, less alcohol, more greens, more fruit, more exercise. These are universal parts. But then in this process, we're going to use the individual sectors to help you have an idea about what to talk about. Now, the key here is to basically look for the truth and do your best to find out the truth about the individual. Now, in this iris, if you look closely, you see little brown dots throughout. Yes, you see some open webs too. This is basically a jewel constitution. Yes, you have a substructure that is some kinesthetic or stream. You have a substructure that's also shaker. Now you can compare the right eye to the left eye, and you look at how a jewel goes to the right brain, and you can have a whole sociological history based on individual positions in individual sectors. So what I do with an iris is I try to keep it basically simple. I don't go in and look for each individual mark. I look at the composite of the whole iris and what are the positions that are most impactful. Now, the lower lateral positions, basically the 2 and a bit of the 4, this lower lateral area in the right eye and the lower lateral area in the left eye, I often call these social emotional patterns. These two places of the social emotional will be the easiest one for you to have a rapport with that person, because you can describe it. When you understand this position or something in this side, you will get feedback that you are correct. And you'll discover sooner or later that the ones on the medial side or the inside of the eye, very difficult to get feedback that it's correct. So I don't go there right away. I always go to the lower lateral positions first. This will describe the pattern of their relationships with parents, other people, their mate, and you can describe their mate. Now, if I were to describe this person's mate, how would I describe their mate? Well, you take this constitution and you reverse it. If I said this pattern was a jewel, then you'll find out they're married to a flower. So who are they married to? An emotionally oriented opposite. I always work in these social emotional opposites. Later on, you'll discover that this position right here is a very painful relationship with father. Right eye of the person, father's side of the family. Left eye of the person, mother's side of the family. If you have this pattern here, now you can predict the pattern that the mate has with the opposite parent. What? If I have a pain with father, which is easy to confirm, then the mate, who's not even in the room, will have a painful relationship with their mother. There's always the opposites. Let me help you. 100% of the time, these opposites will be present even if you don't see it. So I really suggest that you learn the basic sectors. Later on, you'll find out, if you want to go that route, these individual sectors, they're numbered for a reason. 6, 5, 4, 3 in the solar plexus, 2 just below the belly, 1 in the area of the pelvic cavity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It marches right up the body. Later on, you'll find up the front, down the back. Yes, you want to call these glands, organs, body systems? Yes. I already have published charts available for you on the RAYID International Facebook page under files. You can get maps. So I'm not going to go and teach you each one of these. I'm going to just describe how to use it. Just identify these locations. So for example, what affects 5 and 6? What do you really know about what affects the head, organ, brain, obvious, throat? What are the glands and organs in the throat? Sometimes called the thyroid, parathyroid. What are the glands and organs in the chest? Okay, we're talking heart, lungs, goes down to the solar plexus, number 3. What do you have at number 3? Liver, pancreas, some spleen, and now you go into the digestive functions. What do you have in the pelvic cavity? In the 1, you have basically the entire reproductive system, you have the hips, and each one of these has a predominant type of emotion. Now, your job, if you're going to educate them, is to at least hint that there are emotions that they need to process. Always start with the lateral ones. So if you see this large mark in the right eye of the individual in the lower lateral position, this is the relationship to father or the relationship to men or other forms of symbols of authority. What's a symbol of authority? A teacher, a policeman, sometimes it's a bank, sometimes it's an army, sometimes it's a political group, sometimes it's a religious one. So you'll see different forms of resentment about authority. Now, the individual interpretation of each one of these is already in a map. There is a chart. You can go right to the chart and look at the range. But I sometimes say, it looks to me like you have an old issue with your father. That's easy for them to acknowledge. And even if they don't want to acknowledge, they sometimes say, yeah, that's how it was when I was a child. It's okay now. It's okay. He died. It's gone. No, you won't be done with your father for the rest of your life. Sorry. You won't be done with your mother for the rest of your life. You'll learn more and more things about the lower functions. Now, if you really want to practice the tough stuff, not easy to confirm, you go right down to the lower medial. Now, the difference between the lower medial and the lower lateral is that typically the lateral sides of the iris, they are socially available and they are conscious to you in some form. But the inside parts are actually the back of the body. And for example, these correspond to the kidneys primarily. There are also reproductive tract, lower back, and a whole series of things that happen in the lower pelvic regions. So later on, you realize there are specific feelings that affect number one. There are specific feelings that affect number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. For example, one of the common ones that affects number 6 is superiority, arrogance, power, some form of I want to be the authority or I hate authority. That's usually 6. Also things that affect 6, I won't go through all of them, religious authority or rage at religion, or I want to be the religious authority. That's typically 6. Things in the area of 5, typically things of people who want to escape by going out of the body. So it's a very easy place to confirm, by the way, 5 and 6. Now, whether or not people confirm it, if there is a mark in that location, yes, there is a history in their life, in their family tree in that position. But let's take an easy one, or maybe not so easy, number 1. Now, number 1 is the pelvic cavity, and it primarily is the driver's wheel of the will, the human will. Now, there's 2 different forms with the will. There's an assertive form of will, which is a will that wants to control exterior circumstances, other people, situations, financial experiences, relationship attraction. That's the will that projects. That's usually towards other people. The yin side of the will, the mother's side will, is a will towards self. Worthlessness, shame, I'm no good. And they have a tendency to minimize their will, or they become what we call agreeable. They'll sit there in the consultation and their head goes up and down. Yes, 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 right. Yes, yes. What they're really wanting to avoid is being criticized or being wrong or being disagreeable. So the yin side is a misuse of the will towards self. The yang side is the misuse of will towards others. These 2 different forms of will are with you every day and every moment. Every day, every moment. The use or misuse of the will. The passive use of will, not speaking up, not being responsible, trying to please other people so they don't hurt you. The aggressive use of the will, blame, anger, attack, ridicule, sarcasm. The aggressive use of projection. That's mine. It's your fault. I'm unhappy. If you would just change. Wow. So you want to take this one on? Well, when you're educating someone about these different marks in their eyes, you're going to have to talk about the use of will. because they're going to need to change their will if they're going to change their diet. If they're going to change the way they treat themselves or somebody else, they're going to have to voluntarily engage the desire to want to improve. Now, this is not a class on therapies. We're going to do some therapies on another recording, and then we're going to come down into how did these actually work? I know it's a little bit odd, but it kind of does a this. I know. What's a this? There's always an exchange of father, mother, father, mother. Mother side, the inside. Attitudes and feelings about self. Father's side, attitudes and feelings about others. So outside, inside, outside, inside, outside, inside. This is always circulating life force. Ultimately, it's the circulation of the life force that's going to cause suffering or health. Greater harmony, greater health, greater disharmony, less health. It's that simple. I know that sounds like it's really simple, but the intended desire to circulate your feminine and your masculine inside yourself, your feeling attitudes about your mother and yourself, your feelings, attitudes about your father, and your relationship to others, your outer material responsibility, your inner personal responsibility through feelings. This is the two sides. So when I use the sectors, I just identify the individual areas that I know I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to educate them about some sense of responsibility. And even if you can't see anything in the iris, you still use the template. Yes, this issue about will is going to be there. And even the feelings about others and how you relate to others in relationships and how you see yourself as a spiritual being or not. That's all on the lateral side. And on the inside medial patterns, yes. And later on, you're going to discover that the numbers are also, yes, the chakra system. Chakra number 1, chakra number 2. Now you notice that there are 2 ones. There's a 1 on the masculine side, there's a 1 on the feminine side, because you have a front and back to every chakra system. Now, this is not a class on chakras. There's chakras in the front, chakras in the back. And then you're going to discover that the rising sun and the setting sun rules this exchange of energy from the father's family to the mother's family and back again. Sectors. I just use sectors. Sometimes I just hone in on one position or another and just talk about that. Then later on, you'll also go the symptoms in the body, things I look for. We've talked about which eye is more closed. We've talked about the thumb and the irregularities in the pointedness of the half moons. We've talked about some things about, one of my favorite questions is, have you ever broken a bone? Yes, I broke my right leg. And so I go, right, father's side, leg. Oh, we have an issue down here, an issue with father's side, and authority. Someone goes, no, I broke my left leg. Oh, lower left leg. Well, that's a whole different feeling about self-image. And why would you break? All right, come on. I know this is hard to believe, but there are no accidents. So every single symptom or every single event called the law of attraction is being formulated for you now. And it becomes the symptoms of the physical body. So if you step off the curb and you break your left leg, you knew exactly how to do that perfectly. You knew exactly how to have an accident because you're far more intelligent than you realize, and there's a higher intelligence ruling all of this. That's what's pretty cool. There's a template of higher intelligence that designed the iris. I didn't design the iris. No, it's been there before I got here. And the ability to be able to see it, that's a pattern that you can learn to see. So you can use the iris. You can use the sectors. You can use the birth order. You can use the symptoms. You can use the body type and the birth order. You can use all that together. But where does it lead you? It's always leading you one place. Truth. Keep looking for the truth about the sectors, about the person, about who they are, where they're going. And most people are actually lonely, tired, depressed, angry, hopeless. And most people want to quit, or they want to hide their pain by some form of and combination of addictions. People are in pain. They look around and the world's crazy and they don't know how to survive. So how do you educate them from a very basic level? Perhaps one of the most important emotions you carry with you is compassion. That no matter what their facade is doing, no matter what their eye structure or symptoms are telling you, having compassion for their current condition, even if you say nothing, but you have a sincere compassion, it's going to help to circulate this. Later on, you'll find out that each one of these positions is not only a birth order position or a chakra, it's also a grandparent or a great-grandparent. The 1s and 2s, they're the grandparents. The 3, 4, 5, and 6, the great-grandparents. Yes, so does it help to know or talk about each one of these grandparents as a composite of your own experience? Yes. So for example, if I want to talk about my father's mother's father, number 6, yes, if I talk about that and they go, well, I've never heard of him, I don't know who he is, why would he be important? Because each one of these patterns you see are epigenetic crystallized memories transmitted down the family tree to you. Nice to recognize what's yours and what isn't. So when we get to the therapy side, we learn to actually begin to have the discernment of which one of these patterns are you repeating, and which one of these patterns can you choose to not repeat. It's personal choice. You don't have to be a victim to your iris, nor can you blame your iris. My iris did this to me, or my grandmother did this to me. No, your grandmother didn't do this to you. You chose to let her influence choose for you. You decided not to use your own will. So eventually it comes down to this. Eventually you also find out that there are ascending and descending forces. That each hour of the day is an ascending or descending force. Each month of the year in each season is an ascending and descending force, and it's always doing this. I know that sounds like a lot, but this is how I use sectors. Now, if you're not sure what you see, just educate things that you know are true. Always take care of the body. If you're not sure, if you're taking care of the body correctly, send them off to somebody who can do it for you. Or train yourself by getting handouts about diet or body, handouts about exercise. You might want to give them a brochure for a yoga class, or the benefits of walking, or Tai Chi or Qigong, or the importance of doing dance. You want to educate them about nutrition and the body, stabilize the body. Now, there are arriving amazing instruments of supplements and body chemistry that will change how we do the body chemistry level. That's arriving. Science is bringing different forms of knowledge about how we use body chemistry. But always, let me underline that for you, always give the responsibility back to them, even if they want to give it to you, so that they can become personally responsible for each one of these sectors. And what do I mean by that? For example, we talked about number 6. We talked about how number 6 is the brain, but number 6 also is about how do you feel about something higher than you? Is there something, quote, higher than you? Spirits, aliens, angels, the divine? How do you feel about something bigger, stronger, smarter, older, more intelligent than you? Because there's lots of them. Lots. So what is your personal feeling around learning how to receive and become responsible? This is a number 6. We go all the way through here. You want to really do 3 and 4 well? Guess what 3 and 4 is really about? Relationships with others. That's all. 3 has to do with your community, how you get along with people around you in your service or your career. 4 has to do mostly with the ability to have friends, to give and receive love. That's all 3 and 4. So you can just go right through the line talking about 5 and 6 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and you've basically rung a lot of bells. And I mean that literally. If you go through and you talk about these different positions just a little bit, you've actually brought their attention to a real part inside of them. So in a consultation, I try to remember to cover all of these in just some little brief moment. It's also, if you talk about, for example, father's father's father and mother's mother's mother, these are the positions of the heart. Father's father's father, the arterial function of the heart, the giving. Mother's mother's mother, the receiving function of the heart. This is a very important place for people to be able to accept the responsibility to feel. So it's good to talk about mother's mother's mother, sometimes called the yin of the heart, change, receiving love. A lot of people have trouble here. And if I say, do you know your mother's mother's mother? They go, no, I know nothing about her. Well, she has a very strong influence on you and your ability to be able to receive. But what did I just do? I took their attention to mother's mother's mother. And whatever their degree of feeling or comprehension was, before I said that, it just went up. Did you get that? If you talk about something and they swear that they know nothing about it, which by the way is not true, because they do know it at some level. But I would say to someone, okay, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you love your mother's mother's mother? Well, I don't know her at all. I never heard of her. 0. I said, no, if it were 0, you would already be dead. But let's just give it a 1.5. Why don't you ask your grandmother, if she's alive, about your great-grandmother, or do some research. Just going there for a few seconds starts ringing the bell, and literally it starts to vibrate. Now, if you walk away, it's still vibrating. If they go home and they wonder about their mother's mother's mother, it's still vibrating. And then if you associate mother's mother's mother to a symbol in nature, guess what it is in nature? The ocean that refuses no river. Wow, nice symbol, the ocean. What is it in the times of the day? Bedtime. The time when you go from vertical to horizontal. That's the four-girl experience. Now, just doing that much, you facilitated an increase of attention and feeling. If you do the other side, fathers, fathers, father, you have two sides of the heart. The arterial function of the beating of the heart, and that's the giving, the giving, the giving, the giving. On the other side, the receiving. The two of them work together. So on a scale of 1 to 100, how much do you love your father's father's father? Because that's not only a part of your family tree, that's part of a skill set. That's an ability that you can develop. Would you like that one? Well, yeah, it's called a sense of humor. It's called joy, laughter, but it's also the corresponding place of fraternal love, the giving of love. What's this about? Friendship. Perhaps one of the most sacred things that you'll ever do in your life is have a friend. One of the ways to increase that is to increase the access to father's father's father. So ask your father, what do you know about your grandfather? Well, I don't know. Then ask your grandfather, if he's still alive, what he knew about his father, or do some research. Lots of genetic information about ancestry and 23andMe. You can find out what the ancestry is of your father's father's father. And it has a therapeutic benefit. Remember, this is not a class on therapies. I'm just giving you a better feeling about how to use the sectors. Where is number 5? And number 5, the throat. Wow, what's in the throat? Thyroid, parathyroid. It's the only place in the body where one gland is inside of another gland. Coincidence? No. Who is this? Where is this? What is it about? Number 5. We can show you what that looks like and feels like. Just to help you, on the female side, it's your mother's father's father. Guess what it's about? Free will. Wow, you like that one? Free will. The right to make a choice. It's creativity. Has to do with voice, has to do with just having thought. It has to do with telepathy, if you like that one. It has the ability to be able to aspire to something greater, free will. So, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you know your mother's father's father? Whatever it was before, it just went up. I just took you there. You can't avoid it. Sorry. Now, if I also said to you, the hour before sunrise, some of you would go, oh, no. An hour before sunrise? No, I never get up until 8, 9 in the morning. I go, well, you're missing something. 2 hours before sunrise, this one is open. Wow. 2 hours before sunrise, nature opens that gate for you. No, it's not automatic, sorry. You have to actually be there and be awake to feel it. It's about individuality, transparency, being your authentic self. That's just one location, and it's associated to a gland, parathyroid, a feeling, transparency, authenticity, telling the truth, speaking up. Well, we could talk about it a lot, But each one of these numbers has a different responsibility, a different feeling, a different action. So this is how I use sectors. I take a look, I see what's affecting them the most. And then I come back and go, okay, let's ask a question. Your mother's father's father, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you like him? I don't know. No, I heard he was a horrible person. I heard he was an alcoholic and he shot a man and went to prison. No, we don't want anything to do with him. No, no, no. That's the part that you have to open, feel, let go of, forgive. Because whatever he contributed to your DNA is yours. And one day you're going to have to deal with it, whether you like it or not. You can try to medicate it and ignore it. You can try to shut off people from different parts of the family because you don't want to deal with your mother-in-law or you don't want to deal with your brother or somebody else. But sorry, the sectors always remember. And they keep creating the next law of attraction. So this is how I use the sectors. How to be able to feel, understand the templates and the maps, and then educate people toward the opportunity to change. So I'll make an easy one for you. It's very, very easy. You ready? Mother's father. You probably had a chance to meet him. It's not about what he looked like or even how he acted. He's part of the access that you have to feel. Wow. It also affects your lungs. Very important. How do you feel about your mother's father? Or how did your mother feel about her father? Because how she felt about her father affects your ability to be able to use that function, not only biochemically through breathing, but different forms of inspiration. On this side, it was father's side, that's mother's father. On the other side, mother's father. On this side, I get reversed with the imagery. On this side is my mother's father. On this side is my father's mother, and these control. So what I was saying about mother's father is in your left iris. What I'm saying about father's mother's in your right iris. And you see, it's pretty easy to get confused sometime. But a lot of it has to do with how do you feel about one or the other. How did my father feel about his mother? How did my grandmother feel about my father? Ask. Listen. How did my mother feel about her father? How did my grandfather feel about his daughter, your mother? Wow, this is a lot of information based on how to just follow these sectors. So thank you for your patience and your kindness. This is not intended to be complete. This is just an overview about how the RAYID system works. The iris constitution, the birth order composition, the cycles and seasons, the symptoms, the body signs. It all comes back to the human experience of progress. So I hope today you progressed just a little bit about understanding the sectors of the iris and their correspondence to health and happiness. All right. You have a good one. I'll talk to you again.